Welcome, folks. Slightly different thing this week. We usually do the Ask Me Anything about Evernote thing on a Wednesday, whereas special guest time today. Oh, yes. It's very exciting. Let me get through the nonsense first. Don't forget to subscribe. Tamingthetrunk.com, tamingthetrunk.com. Subscribe on YouTube. If you subscribe on YouTube, make sure you subscribe on tamingthetrunk.com because the stuff goes out before YouTube gets it there. There you go. Right, that's got all the nonsense out of the way. That was shorter than most YouTubers, wasn't it, Sean? That was like seconds.
That's right.
We haven't had to sit here for 10 minutes. So special guest today, Sean Adams. So one of the Evernote experts, also the owner of the Reddit, of the Evernote Reddit subreddit thing. Yeah, I think I've got that right. And also new Substack out, which is called the Relapsed Reader, which is pretty cool. So we're going to talk about that. Thanks for joining me, Sean. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's interesting to do this for sure.
Yeah. So Reddit. Oh, Reddit. Yeah. I suppose the first thing to mention is that I'm one of the moderators on Reddit. So conflict of interest and all that sort of stuff and things. Yeah. So were you a member of the Evernote Reddit subreddit, like when it was a bit of a bin fire?
I was, and I used to reach out to the moderator team that was there before at least once a week. Trying to point out stuff like, hey, these, we're not getting a lot of helpful comments here. Unhelpful is I think a nice way of saying it.
Yeah, I mean, it was awful. I mean, I remember posting an update once. So I just posted something that said, yeah, there's a new update on Evernote or something like that. Oh, totally harmless. And somebody told me I should die.
Yeah, it was.
They said they should, yeah, and it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Reddit.
Right, whatever. It's just an update.
Yeah, Reddit in general, I mean, it's just, it can be a cesspool. People feel the freedom to say whatever they want to say, even if that's not nice. And sometimes they're doing it to get a reaction, obviously. So that's something I definitely wanted to change because it's not really, it's a community site, right? Our Evernote Reddit subreddit is supposed to be for the community to ask questions and get actual answers. And that was not happening before. And the moderators just would never respond. So,
yeah. Yeah. So was it kind of like dead? Was the moderators just weren't interested anymore? There was just nothing going on, basically.
Yeah, they had a lot of, when we took over, they had a lot of rules in the background that was doing a lot of the moderation automatically. Some of it was heavy-handed, mentioning other products was immediately deleted for the most part, especially a couple in specific, which I've learned there was a reason for some of them. And I won't mention specific products, but there's one where the developers like to come in and just post advertisements, which is just not appropriate unless you're talking to people, Right, for sure. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just they weren't. I think they just got burnt out trying to deal with it, to be honest.
Yeah, because absolutely. So, how did you get control of it? Because presumably you can't just email Reddit and say, hello, I don't like how this subreddit is being run. Can I have it, please? Because I'll do a better job. And presumably doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no, not at all. You have to, there's a specific subreddit you go to and you post, hey, the moderators haven't been active and I haven't seen them active in X amount of days. It took me about 3 tries. What would happen is you have to reach out to the moderator team. And that is the only time they would respond. Would be to say, hey, we'll look at this, or we'll look at bringing in on the team. They never would respond again, so that reset the clock. They have to be inactive for, I think, 30 days before Reddit will even look at it. And then that eventually happened. I think on the 3rd try, none of them responded. There's probably 3 or 4 or 5 moderators on there at the time that just, did respond.
Yeah. And how long did the whole process take, do you think, to get control of it?
Well, like I said, it took about 3 times, which the first 2 times set the clock, so that was 60 days. So it took about 90 days total. But once Reddit was like, okay, you're good, it was a pretty quick process.
Yeah, yeah. And what was the plan from then on when you got hold of it? What did you have in your mind
Well, my first plan
when you
was to
got it?
find the folks who, like yourself, the Evernote, especially the certified experts, got real lucky, and David reached out to me. I think day one, when I posted that there was a new team, and offered to help, and he's been awesome. Then I got in touch with you, and he knew a lot more about the community even than I did. It's the people um, like yourself and Federico, that was his name. Yeah, reached out to him pretty
Yeah.
early on and said, "Hey, we're going to try to make these changes." And then Bending Spoons was like immediately like, "Yeah, let's do this." So they were super responsive, super supportive.
So there's a fair bit of communication with Evernote and Bending Spoons around this as well.
Yeah,
That's
I
interesting.
stepped in very early on. Wanted to let them know that we were doing this because one of my goals was not just to have community support, but have Bending Spoons seeing what people were saying. That was important to me. A lot of times you're not going to get that on the official forums, um, so that you could really get a
Yeah.
good bird's eye view of what people were talking about. If we could get them at least looking at the subreddit with the understanding that they wouldn't have any say in the moderation because that's a conflict of interest. But yeah,
Yeah. And they were quite interested for this happening. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, Frederico immediately got us in touch with Rebecca
Yeah.
at the time. I guess was the she's doing that part of it. She doesn't do it anymore, but as you know, but at the time he immediately got us in touch with her. She got us all brought me and David brought in at the time. So yeah,
Yeah. Sounds pretty cool. Um, there's also the support team, which are kind of a little bit active every now and then on the Reddit. Was that something you wanted to happen?
um, as far as support team, you mean like the folks who were actually watching?
Yeah, the Evernote.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah,
wanted to be able to we wanted to open up a couple different lines of communication. One of them being just bending spoons, looking at their subreddit and trying to see the trends of things, common problems. That to me was beneficial to them as much as it was to us. And then the second part of the plan was to have them actually responding to some of these people who say, I put in 6 tickets and I'm not getting the responses that I want. As we all know,
yeah,
the people, me and you both
yeah,
know, is responding. They get that AI that they have to respond to, and people
yeah,
don't
yeah,
always read the screen um, to see what that
yeah.
means. So
Yeah, there's a bit of a process to follow,
yeah,
isn't there, to get to like a human. Um, I won't mention it, but there's another app I use whose you can't get to a human. I mean, you can't. I mean,
well,
it's just this AI thing. I don't know. It's called Zoe or something. You're just constantly talking to Zoe, and Zoe has absolutely no idea what you're talking about. And you keep going, and it's impossible to find a human. At least with Evernote, you do eventually get to one.
yeah, and that's the trend. I mean, even Amazon. I'll mention them because they're the big guy in the room anyway. So, but Amazon, it's almost impossible to use their chat anymore without just getting AI
Yeah,
responses.
yeah. Support's expensive, isn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah,
exactly.
support's expensive at the end of the day. So, so you got control of it. Evernote's kind of like happy, and Bending Spoon's happy with kind of like sitting around having a look at it every now and then, and what you're doing. How did you go about cleaning it up and creating rules? Because the rules thing is quite tricky because you don't want to censor people. You don't want to stop people being able to say what they think,
Yeah,
but there has to be a line somewhere, doesn't there? So, how did you? Was it a bit hit and miss at first? Was it, uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
did you have it in your head what you were doing?
Absolutely. First thing we tried to do was set up a bunch of automated rules, and then they just didn't work.
Hmm.
They work to a degree, but then they got heavy handed. Like you're saying, you have to let the conversation play out to a degree. Um, and a lot of it is, I wouldn't even call a lot of them rules, but more guidelines. Like
Yeah,
there's a black and white area where somebody's venting frustration. This is something me and David talk about a lot too, um, especially in the terms of you're not going to get a lot of people who come on just to post it. Evernote's great or any product's great. It's just
hmm,
people don't
yeah.
interact unless they have something to complain with a lot of the time.
or unless it's Obsidian, which is a cult.
Well,
There it is. I've said it. It's a cult. No,
I will say I've used Obsidian, love it. But
it is. It's
it's
cool.
much time configuring it as I do using it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Once you've gone past the setting number 800, you give up. Then you at the end of the day. Sorry. Carry on.
But
Carry
yeah,
on, carry
so
on.
with the rules, and we're going to call them guidelines. There are a couple rules like we're not going to use harsh curse words that will immediately get the temperature up most of the time. So we really look for that. And I'm actually looking to set up a rule that doesn't do anything but notify us when that happens, so that we know to go look at a specific comment. Because poor David is trying to keep up with a recent influx. I guess the algorithm of Reddit has decided that our subreddit is the place to be for the moment. But it's we use them as guidelines, I guess, to answer the question.
Yeah.
We read through it and see what the intention is. So
yeah, it does seem to have got a lot busier. I have noticed myself, because I monitor quite a bit of kind of like people talking about Evernote in general, and there has been a huge, over the last couple of months, uptick in the amount of people writing about Evernote and writing positively about Evernote, saying things like, I'm coming back to Evernote, I'm using Evernote again, this is what you use Evernote for, and there's more people kind of coming into the world. So it could be that, things are changing.
yeah, and I'm a big trier of everything. So I've tried every tool that I could think of. And it always comes back to Evernote, because it encompasses all the pieces of the way my brain works, especially dealing with ADHD and things like that. It allows me to do any organization at the moment that I want to do, and then go back and fix it later. So
yeah, absolutely. So you're happy with how the subreddit is kind of running at the moment? Mind you, I removed one this morning. Somebody wanted to punch somebody at Evernote in the face. So I've removed. I know. It's like, I mean, just, you can say that you're not happy without saying that.
Yeah, physical violence is just, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're in a good place right now. We had to post recently because, like I said, I think the algorithm has decided we're the place to be, with everybody posting about it and stuff. I think we're getting in general getting more traffic. Actually, I know we're getting more traffic. I can look at the stats, but I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
Yeah. Got you. Yeah. So if anybody wants to head over to the subreddit, it is Evernote on Reddit. Just Evernote. Yeah. Just head in there, join, and be nice.
Yeah. We welcome everyone.
As long as you're nice.
Yeah, as long as you're nice.
Let's talk a little bit about Evernote. So what do you do? Obviously, your job is not running the Evernote thing, right, because kind of like, you need to eat.
Yeah.
So what do you what kind of world do you work in, and how do you use Evernote yourself?
I am in information technology, so I'm in IT. Right. I'm right now, I'm a program manager. I have a bunch of projects for the state government where I live. So it's a lot, especially for the way my brain works. I've gone everywhere from being a tester to development, business analysis, and now I'm where I'm at now with program management. So my use of Evernote and tools like that has definitely grown over the years.
Yeah. So how are you using it? What sort of information, particularly work-wise, let's say, what kind of information are you putting into Evernote?
I put a lot of personal notes to myself. I really try to build out a personal knowledge, the PKM, in Evernote, and I have different projects, of course, within there. I've studied a little bit of was it Tiago Forte's system of organizing.
Yeah.
I've modified it to my own needs because of different reasons, but so I keep a lot of my own personal knowledge in it that I need to refer back to, so I don't have to keep going and Googling again, things like that.
Yeah. So do you keep any documentation? Do you document yourself? Like, presumably, if you've spoken to somebody, do you kind of like document what you've said? Not necessarily just meetings and things, but even just like one-to-one conversations. Because I do quite a lot about that.
Yeah.
I document what I've said.
Yeah, I do
You
that. I
know.
keep it in, I have a work workspace now. Now the spaces is out. I've created a workspace, and within there, I keep my one-on-one conversations, then meetings, and I have different areas for each one of those things. Where I mean, I even keep like a commonplace type book within each project where if I need daily inspiration, for instance, related to work, I'll capture it in there, just go look at it, or a thought that, hey, maybe I can do this better. Let's explore that later. I'll put it in my commonplace area, things like that.
And do you kind of like give yourself a certain amount of time to go back and review it? Is there kind of like a set time during the day when you say, right, I'm going to go and review this information?
I set aside about an hour every day at the end of the day to go through and kind of organize or reorganize everything so that I can go back, and I'll have an area for look at tomorrow. So when I get up in the morning, I'll immediately go look at tomorrow, or what was yesterday, but now it is tomorrow. But and I'll see, hey, what are the highlights that I want to remind myself of, even if that's like I said, I read a lot now. So if I see a book quote, I'll put it in there like, hey, I want to look at this tomorrow again, things like that. So yeah, I think to answer
Yeah.
your question, I spend about an hour in the evenings organizing everything.
And you said you're using spaces. You find that cool? You find it useful?
I do, I find it very useful because especially with like my I have a set side job where I do more of an IT support type thing. So I have a workspace, and then I work with Macs and Windows, so then I can create stacks, and then it really works for my brain.
Yeah, that's cool. What about tags? Are you a tagger? Have you got like 6,500 tags or something like that in there?
I'm terrible. I should use tags because I think it would be very helpful, um, but then I always forget to do it. So, and then I end up with a
Yeah,
thousand tags
yeah.
that are kind of relevant to the same thing.
Well, that's the issue I have with tags is that I can't remember what all the tags are. You tend to end up with more tags than you would have
Yeah,
notebooks.
exactly.
So yeah. So I don't know. Creating a tabs tag seems to be a lot easier than creating a notebook. Not physically easier, but mentally it seems easier
Yeah,
to create. And creating a new notebook seems as if it's like a big permanent thing.
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Where
yeah,
where I find it
yeah.
that
So no
the
tags.
tag is like how I'm feeling at the moment that I want to organize this. And so that could change in another two
Yeah,
minutes, and then I forgot what I did the first time.
yeah. I use tags a lot for statuses, like things like pending or waiting for or something like
Mhm.
that, which kind of works for me, and I can see what I'm waiting forever for somebody to actually get back to me
Yeah,
about something. Yeah,
actually that's
yeah,
pretty good because that's something that's going to be stable. I mean, if you had two or three different tags about the status, you'd know what those were all the time instead of creating new ones. So,
yeah. And how many notes have you got in total? Do you reckon?
oh, I have no, not I'm not even close to knowing. This is probably I know if it's over a couple thousand probably at this point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm at about 3,500, I think, but I do delete a lot. I don't know whether do you delete a
I,
lot? Do you clean?
I have one. I'm one of those people who are afraid to delete anything, so I keep it in a what is it called? Features folder is what I call it. Like maybe I'll look at this sometime in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah. Um, we mentioned a little bit earlier about the ADHD. ADHD. I mean, how is Evernote helping with that? Is there kind of like a specific difference in how somebody with ADHD might use Evernote than somebody without ADHD, for example?
I would like. I'm nowhere near being an expert on it, but to me, um, I think the best way is to compare it to other tools, right? So, we were kind of joking about, the other tools that allow so much customization that you get kind of lost in that. And that for me, if I were looking at, hey, maybe I want to do this, and then the next thing you know, I've wasted 6 hours trying to configure, this other product. Whereas when I go into Evernote, I know where my space is. I know I'm going to create a notebook with a note, or I'm just going to create a note. I create the note, and I don't get distracted by 1,000 other bells and whistles that I could be playing with. That's where Evernote really shines for me. It does everything I need it to do in a way that's as simple as it could be in most cases.
So yeah, so you think kind of like because Evernote is quite structured
Mhm.
in a way, it helps,
Absolutely.
and you can't customize it that much. That's a positive for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, it
Yeah,
really it
yeah,
keeps me on the track that I need to go down instead of getting distracted for sure.
yeah. Because we do hear in the Evernote official forums and in the subreddit as well. There's a lot of folks who kind of like, we have a setting for this, setting for that, setting for the other, setting for something else. That can sometimes then move you away from what the product's actually good at. Does that? Yeah,
Yeah, and I see that a lot. It's not even just Evernote. It's I have a product right now called I don't know if you've heard of the Remarkable tablet. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so I
yeah,
just recently got a Remarkable Paper Pro. And I look at Reddit, a lot of the Reddits to see what people are talking about, how they talk, and then pick up hints and stuff about moderation. But a lot of people, well, it doesn't do this. It doesn't allow me to surf the web or whatever. I'm like, that's not what the product's for. So maybe the use case isn't
yeah,
clear. Um, so yeah,
yeah, yeah. I've heard a lot of folks asking for like multiple levels of notebooks in Evernote, and I know there was a chat on the expert forums not long ago, where they kind of like said, "Who wants kind of what do you think about like multiple levels of notebooks?" And there were an awful lot of people who said no. The great thing about Evernote is that you're almost forced into a certain structure so that it doesn't become complicated.
yeah. I mean, I can't imagine the widespread use case of doing that because you have spaces, you have stacks, you have notebooks, then you have notes. In my brain, like how much further could you go down without it just becoming a number one, an AI search mess, right? Because they're trying to do that.
Yeah.
It's the more complicated that gets, the more complicated it gets to search. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And your Substack, which you've just launched, Relapsed Reader, is that kind of like focusing on the ADHD side of things and note taking and looking at that? Explain a little bit about what got you writing that.
sure. When I was a kid, I read a lot, um, all the way up through probably early adulthood. I would read constantly, and that had as much to do with just the environment I was in. We didn't do a lot of TV watching, things like that, so it was kind of the activity. But as I started adding more activities, especially with ADHD, I'd go down. Um, I try to explain to my wife what ADHD means. It doesn't mean I can't focus on anything. It means I can get hyper focused on the wrong thing. So,
Mm.
um, what
Yeah.
I wanted to really start doing is concentrating on what I can do to get back into that reading habit because I love to read. I love books. Um, so I started doing a lot of research, tips and tricks on what that meant for someone with ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD, like the last 3 years, so later in life. Um, and I started noticing the crossovers between the things I do, tips and tricks that I do with Evernote and taking notes, and how I focus there with reading, like reading in small chunks and things like that. What tools do I use? And then that kind of it's grown out of that. It's grown out of that research and wanting to share, things that I've learned or what works for me. So
Yeah. It's interesting to say you're diagnosed like recently. Was that kind of like a moment when you thought, ah, did it kind of explain a
it
lot
it,
to you? Did you kind of make you suddenly understand things
it
better?
really did. It helped me understand things better. Um, there was a moment where you kind of sink into it, right? So then it becomes an excuse for everything, and then you have to be kind of careful. Like, wait a
Yeah.
minute, that's just me being lazy or whatever. It's not that's just an excuse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've learned a lot about it, what it means and things like that. It's been an interesting ride. I don't know how it is there, but in the U.S., it's very hard to get diagnosed as an adult. It's something that usually catches
Mm.
it as when you're a child, but I come from a very poor background where we didn't go to the doctor a whole lot. We just took
Mm.
cold medicine and got over it. It was
Yeah,
when not till I was an
yeah,
adult where I had better health insurance and things that I could explore that. So
yeah, yeah. There's a big backlog in testing here in the UK as well for that. There's a huge backlog for kids and adults at the end of the day. I think a lot of folks are. I think there's a lot more awareness around it, which I think is good, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I think your phones
Yeah,
and all these gadgets have exasperated a lot of that too. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. And where do you see the Substack going? What are you kind of like looking to write about in the going forward?
I really want to write about things I'm learning with reading with ADHD. I like to recommend books. Nonfiction is where I'm really struggling. So as I learn better how to handle that, where it's not like dopamine rushes all the time, I want to share that. But I also want to share the tools I use. Again, I mentioned the Remarkable. That's going to be in a future Substack. I have a Kindle Scribe, which also moderate the Kindle Scribe subreddit. And people were asking, well, how can I get my Kindle Scribe notes anywhere? So Evernote works because you can email to Evernote, or you can do the Rocketbook trick I used if you want to send it to multiple places at the same time. Things like that. So, just share things that I've learned.
Yeah, and is that where you tend to do a lot of your reading on your Kindle?
I do a lot of reading on Kindle, but I also am a book buyer. I buy more than I read, so
Yeah,
we'll save that.
yeah, yeah. I'm the same as you. I've got like a separate bookshelf for books I haven't read yet, and it's
Yeah.
possibly almost as big as the bookshelf for books that I have read.
You can kind
It's,
of see a
it's
third
kind
of
of
my
like,
Tolkien collection back here behind me. So I
yeah,
have I have
yeah.
just
Well,
about all of
it's
his books
interesting.
there.
This little, I've just filled in this little bit here. I need to put another box on there. We got downstairs. We got bookcases. Oh, books absolutely freaking everywhere. And you mentioned about the which is quite interesting about the fiction non-fiction thing. It's why how is the how does that sit differently with you?
Well,
Why is fiction? Why is non-fiction more harder?
so when you look at especially fiction, I'll get on my soapbox, but very shortly. So, but you
Hmm.
look at how fiction books are formatted. Like if you look at, I don't know if you've ever read anything by Dan Brown. That's the guy who wrote that. What was he? Angels and Demons and all
Oh,
that good stuff back in the
yeah,
day.
Images, Demons. Yeah, yeah, Da Vinci
Yeah,
Code
Da
and all
Vinci
that.
Code. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That one that
yeah,
got big. If
yeah,
you look at his books, they're very short chapters. He does that on purpose because every time you finish a
mm,
chapter, it's a dopamine hit. Whereas a nonfiction book could go on for 20, 30 pages in a chapter where there's not real action. It's informative, right? It's explanatory. Um, so it
yeah,
makes it the way the ADHD brain works is the dopamine is what you're looking for inside the brain, how it works. So you get more from fiction because it's made that way. So
yeah, yeah. I must admit, I do like fiction with shorter
yeah,
chapters. Main reason for me is that I can finish a chapter before I go to sleep. I hate falling asleep when I'm halfway through a chapter at night when I'm laying in bed and like you wake up like in 2 in the morning and your reading lamp is right on top of
yeah.
your head or something, and it's like, oh
It's really
god,
interesting when
and
the
then you've
Kindle
lost
hits
your
you in the
place in.
face because you find it goes off and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
falls under. And
yeah. And do you keep a reading list in Evernote? Have you got like a reading list and a books you want to buy in Evernote?
I keep that. Yes and no. It's partial. I use a couple other apps to do that, but one thing I do in Evernote is I've integrated that with my Readwise, which pulls all my quotes and stuff out of Amazon. Um, so a lot of my quotes and stuff are automatically pulled into Evernote.
Cool, cool. And if anyone wants to find the Substack, where do they go? Presume they've got a Substack. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've actually have a domain relapsedreader.com. I do need to connect it to
Right,
my
cool.
Substack, which will happen this week at some point, but that will be the place to go.
They will want money from
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea getting the domain name sorted out. So if folks head over to Substack now and just search for Relapsed Reader, they'll find that, I would have thought, wouldn't
Yep,
they?
yep. They should find it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll stick a link in the notes with this as well. Sean, thanks for this. Appreciate your time. I know it's early over there in the States. It's like lunchtime here in the UK, so I appreciate you getting up for this and doing this. I shall see you on Reddit at some point, avoiding to be punched in the face or something like that, or whatever. I don't know.
Yes.
Thanks for doing it, buddy. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.